wanted to take a look at the power that sits behind Copilot in your system. So as you can see here, I'm currently in my sales environment, and this is Copilot Studio. This is where we can come and configure the components of how Copilot can deliver information to us. So I thought it would be interesting to see what all of these components do and how you can leverage them. So first of all, you need to give it a description and a name. Very simple. But as you can see down here, you do get to choose whether it's a basic system with the guidance that you've put in, or whether you can use generative AI to determine how to best respond to users and events. So that's what gives you more of that generative response. We also have the capacity to choose models. Currently, we have GPT 4.0 and 4.1. We are able to use the Model Context Protocol, as talked about earlier, as a tool in the system. When you're working with it, as you can see, we get analytics, so you're not just flying blind. And in here, we put the instructions. When you're looking at that generative orchestration, the instructions are what it uses for guidance. And you can get quite specific with what you put in there. And you can also reference data that's in your system for a specific place to get information from. So this is where you actually set the rules for the platform, including things like how it responds, what language it uses, and the formats that it can put information in. And you'll see in here we've even got what it does not provide. In your knowledge base, here we have a couple of things showing up. So I have a website where we're going to look at information. I have the tables from inside our Dataverse environment, and I've also uploaded a document with policy information. But as you can see here, we actually have quite a number of places where we can get information from, connect to, and we can also create our own sources that we can reference. In here with tools, this is where we can basically empower the system to do something specific. For example, what I've got here is it can go and look for a particular row as part of its process in the system, in this case, a vacation request, and go and grab that information in a certain format and deal with it. We can set up triggers. So what happens in the system to make this vacation request review actually action in the environment? For example, when somebody enters it into my vacation request system, for example, when somebody requests it in my vacation request system with a status of pending, that will then trigger the system to start taking it through the process where we get some guidance back through our Copilot functionality. And the last few steps here. Also, as you can see, when an agent is triggered, we can also have a sub-agent. For example, if you run into a particular process, which is an issue while it's running through the system, that can then be an agent that runs the escalation path. You can think of whatever examples you like, but that's a very good one for showing that an agent is going through a process, and if it runs into something in particular, there can be a sub-agent that will go and do additional work or pull additional information from another location. In the topics, we have both standard topics, which are very much like you're used to with a chatbot. The ask a question, have a number of responses that are set in that tree structure. But we also have the ability to have a generative topic. So something happens and then it passes it off to a Copilot tool to come up with those topics, which is how we get that response that you see in Copilot chat, where it starts to give answers from those various sources. And finally, down here, we've got suggested prompts, one of the questions that comes up from people when they're looking at their Copilot. is there anything we can do to adjust these prompts? So you'll see this prompt guide here. Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. This is where we set our suggested prompts, and we can get a range of titles and prompt details set in the system for us to be able to trigger them. So you'll see as you work through Copilot Studio, we have even more dedicated areas where we can manage each of those components that I've talked about, and we have deeper settings. And it can get quite complex building these parts of the system, but it does give us a lot of flexibility when you're considering, should we look to use Copilot, and how do we know that it's not just producing a hallucinogenic answer? This is good guidance on showing how we can set and control the details, and how we can really leverage it to use your relevant data sources, whether they're held internally in your system or whether they're held externally in another system that we can access. Finally, I'd just like to show that this Copilot does show up and allow us to deliver answers over here in this chat scenario, we also have a number of other places that we can distribute it. So when you're working on that logic of how do we want our company to be able to engage both internally via things such as Teams, SharePoint, and also with our market, it's very good to understand that that information that's held in Dynamics or a Power App is available to you to leverage on both internal systems and external facing systems. So hopefully that gives you some guidance and understanding of how powerful Copilot Studio can be. And if you would like to connect with us and have a conversation, please make sure to engage, because this is where we are seeing people really be able to leverage the power of generative AI and deliver results that meet your business expectation.